a lot of times gifted students are offered differentiation in the form of help your classmates because the teacher doesn't have any other resources to offer them. And yes, absolutely, for those people questioning, how does this work with gifted students? Very many of our students come into the program with this kind of resistance of, I've always been made to help my classmates because that's what I'm supposed to do as a gifted student. And that's one of the stereotypes, like Artie was talking about, that we're trying to break down. This is not part of differentiation for us. This is something that students choose to do as an elective to help their classmates. So it's a different sort of situation. I know that frustration is deeply embedded in the mind of a lot of gifted people, but it's not how we're doing things with the peer tutoring centers here. Would you like to add anything to that, Artie?
No, I agree with you. I know I have there are a lot of students that do not want to be part of a peer tutoring center just because they don't feel like they're really comfortable with that situation, but they have the math ability too. And then we have students that I know aren't the best in the math ability. However, they do want to work on their talking and their skills. The quote that Tracy put on, or that we put on the beginning, being a tutor is really teaching twice. So being that peer tutor is really beneficial for them. We just try to communicate it to that's only benefits.
Exactly, and actually it's really rewarding to see a lot of our students change their attitude towards collaboration and towards peer tutoring and workshopping and all of those things that they might have been resistant to in the past. Once they're grouped by ability and it's no longer an issue of differentiation, they actually become very comfortable with it. So, okay, moving on. Part 3, tutors. So I'd like to talk about our great tutors and how we set up this program for them. Students start their journey, they start their tutoring journey by being recommended by their math or current English teacher. So as we see students moving up through the curriculum and they reach the point at which, and as you can see, either 9th grade level English or pre-calc, they reach the point at which they're eligible to become a math mentor or a word nerd. By the way, word nerd is the name that the Writing Center tutors gave themselves. So if you're wondering where that came from, it's their own label. So once they reach that point, a teacher will reach out to the Writing Center advisor, the Math Mentors advisor, and say, I have this student who's doing great work. They provide such rich feedback for their classmates, and I think they'd make a great tutor. And so then, you know, we communicate with that student and determine if that's something they'd be interested in. And if so, they sign up for the next semester. So it starts with a recommendation. And again, there's a minimum level in the curriculum at which a student has to have reached in order to even qualify to be a tutor. And they also have to be in good academic standing, and they also have to have the time in their schedule to commit to tutoring. If we have a student, even if they're going to be the best tutor in the world, if their personal academic load is already to the point where they just can't handle another, you know, even one small little thing like a peer tutoring center, then we'll say, no, you need to focus on your own studies right now. So those are our requirements for the tutor. Next slide. Getting to the point of how do we coach our tutors. Now, for anybody who's looked at any of the research on the benefits of peer tutoring centers, you know that tutor training is essential. Like, it's always in bold in all of these studies. You have to train your tutors, you have to coach your tutors. You can't just throw them out there in the world and expect them to do good work. The good news for us is that that training is really kind of built into our curriculum. It's very sneaky how we do that, you see. And we train them up to be great tutors within the classes they're in. And what I mean by that is in every single one of our humanities classes, students are doing peer workshopping in every class. So it's consistent from year to year to year. They're doing peer workshopping. By the time they reach that level where they're eligible to be a tutor, they've probably done a significant number of peer workshops and left an awful lot of feedback for their classmates. So they're already pretty familiar with that and well coached in it as well. Same with the math side of things. There's so much collaboration in our math classes that students are already used to communicating, understanding within their coursework, that by the time they get to the level where they're going to become a tutor, that's something they're pretty comfortable with. So if you don't have that kind of setup in place where you can kind of track, you know, how each student is doing in terms of leaving feedback and collaboration where students can be recommended, then of course you're going to have to put a lot more energy into tutor training before anybody is really allowed to leave feedback for their classmates or leave feedback for the students who are using the tutoring centers. In terms of coaching and guiding the students through the process, I'm not sure with the math mentors. In the Writing Center, we meet once a week, and we kind of break down what happened that week, if there were any struggles, if I noticed any issues with the feedback, because I do review all the feedback that the students are giving. So if there's anything that I noticed that we need to work on, then we'll work on it during our staff meetings. This is really my role in the Writing Center, is I'm there to guide the tutors. I'm like I've said before, I'm practically invisible in the Writing Center itself. I don't do anything there. It's completely student run. But you know, backstage, I'm meeting with the tutors weekly, and we're kind of post-gaming every week as it comes through, and making sure that everybody's up to par and knows what they're doing. And also we have tutors now. Gosh, I want to say we have at least one tutor who I think it's her 4th semester. Her last semester was her 4th semester tutoring, maybe even more than that. So we do have tutors within these tutoring centers who've been doing it for a while, who can mentor the new tutors as they come in. And finally, of course, the expectations have to be crystal clear. Again, kind of in the backstage portion of what we do, because the students do get credit, this is an elective that they take, I do have a syllabus and a course built in Blackboard where all the expectations for what they should be doing, you know, how much time they need to be committing to this each week, etc., are all made clear in the syllabus for the elective. That's all laid out for them, and it's a pass-fail course. And you know, so if they do start slacking off or not leaving the feedback or ignoring their assignments or whatnot, you know, I can come and say, look, we need to talk about what's going on with you, right? Like you were assigned a tutoring session and you didn't show up or whatever. So those expectations need to be made clear and enforced by the faculty advisor, for sure. In just a bit, I'm going to talk about asynchronous tutoring centers. So I already mentioned that I kind of keep an eye on things in that way because I can review everything that's done. There's a question already about, though, how do people review, or how do teachers review what their tutors are doing in Zoom? Do you have any insight in that?
So I try to keep all the tutoring sessions private, just because I can see them, but I let them communicate on that part. But I do communicate with the student that wishes that got the mentoring, just to say, hey, was the mentor okay? Did they work with you well? Was there anything that I need to bring up? So there is feedback that I do instantly get, and I do communicate with that with the mentor afterwards. So I ask, for instance, it's like, just to make sure that everything went smoothly during the thing. And if there is issues that were brought up, which I haven't received any yet, I will bring up during when I meet with them one-on-one, because there's just not so many of them at the same time. So I try to get instant feedback on that occasion.
Awesome, thank you. We can go on to the next slide. Thanks. So this is actually a slide within a slide, what you're seeing here. Like I've mentioned a few times already, our tutoring centers are student-led. This is just an example from the Writing Center tutors, the Word Nerds. They actually create a PowerPoint that they collaborate on at the beginning of the year. And then, you know, they show that, that's the PowerPoint that they show to the student body to show, here's what we do, here's who we are, here's how to submit. Like all of those instructions that introduce the students to the Writing Center is done by the students and distributed by the students. So this, I just showed this as an example. There was a goose theme to last year's Writing Center. I haven't yet figured out where the goose theme came from, but everything that they everything that they distributed last year had a goose on it somewhere. So I just wanted to show you that as an example of one of the things that the students do in terms of running the Writing Center themselves. I also have a student coordinator who is in charge of all of the tutor assignments. So even like who's gonna read which paper and who's doing what is all determined by my student coordinator who I assigned at the beginning of the semester. So it really is a completely student-led group.